There's monsters in the house.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out.
The FBI has some questions for you.
You ever seen this man? His name is Luc Deveraux. His prints were all over the crime scene.
We live among them like ghosts, biding our time. You're mine, so now you're own.
We are brothers. We are one.
I can hear this voice telling me that I gotta kill him.
If you go looking for Deveraux, he'll find you first.
It's not safe here.
Look out!
I ain't killing him. Luc Deveraux did.
Hello, soldier.
G'day and welcome back to the channel, Ginger Ninja's Movie Reviews. I am the Ginger Ninja and these are my Franchise Friday movie reviews. If you're new to my channel, thank you very much for tuning in, stopping by and checking it out. If you're wondering what Franchise Fridays is, it's a series where I've been looking at a movie franchise from start to finish. And today we are at the finishing line for the Universal Soldier franchise with Universal Soldier Day of Reckoning from 2012. Now, before I get into the film, I do want to say a big thank you to all my new and existing subscribers. This franchise has been it's been a lot of fun. It's had its ups and downs, mostly ups to be honest, but it is only a 4-film franchise, so it just fits into a franchise. Let's get into this one because there's a lot to talk about in this one. The film was directed again by John Hyams, and the film stars Scottadkins, dolphlundgren, andreiarlovski, Maria Bonner, and Jean-Claude Vandamme. Now, there is a reason why I've put his name last and Scottadkins first. And it's an interesting one. Anyway, the plot. John looks to take down Luc Deveraux after a home invasion claims his wife and daughter. The fight pits John against Andrew Scott and an army of genetically enhanced warriors. Meanwhile, he must contend with a UniSol in relentless pursuit. Yeah. So this movie, much like the previous one, takes the franchise in a bold new direction, diving into darker, more psychological territory. So if you go into this one expecting a typical action film with, Jean-Claude Van Damme roundhouse kicking his way through enemies, you're in for a bit of a shock. This is something else entirely. This is brutal. It is mind-bending. It's a fever dream, and it feels more like Apocalypse Now got tangled up with a horror film. And I'll touch on that Apocalypse Now reference later on. The story opens with a real gut punch, and it's one of the most intense opening scenes in a movie that I've seen in a long time. John, played by Scottadkins, wakes up from a coma, and he's haunted by this horrifying memory of his wife and daughter's murder, shot with this jarring first-person perspective. You see it from his eyes, and it pulls you into his shock and rage. And the culprit behind all this is none other than Luc Deveraux, the once heroic Universal Soldier, now a sinister cult leader with a bald head and an army of rogue soldiers at his command. So, fueled by rage, revenge is on his mind, and he's tormented by these hallucinations. John sets out on a very violent journey to find Deveraux, and as the bloodshed escalates, the film pulls the rug out from under you again, and it twists it into a psychological horror, tackling heavy themes like identity, free will, and what it means to exist. And as John's sense of reality unravels, so does yours. It's John Hyams' bold approach that gives this movie an unsettling edge. Very different to his previous entry, but also a standout performance in this one as well from everyone involved. It's ambitious, it's chaotic, and it's unapologetically different, and it's exactly what makes it work. So, without further ado, let's get into this one.
Franchise Fridays on the screen, horror shows, zombies scream, vampires biting, shadows gleam, slasher delights in my dream. Shark master swims in fear, ghouls and ghosts, they appear. Sci-fi flicks, end is near, join the horror, shed a tear.
All right, so kicking off with the cast and Scott Adkins. This man is an absolute beast. Now, I know I said Andreiarlovski was a beast, but Adkins is a different kind of beast. Not only does he nail the action scenes with bone-crunching intensity, but he also brings a surprising amount of vulnerability to John's character. I've seen him in other roles, and he is always fantastic, and in my opinion, a very underrated martial artist and actor. Dolphlundgren as Andrew Scott. Though his screen time is limited, his monologues are both darkly humorous and very menacing. And he provides a counterbalance to the film's bleakness. And he has been an absolute highlight in each film, and this one is no exception. And then there's Van Damme. Luc Deveraux. Almost unrecognizable as the hollowed-eyed, Kurtz-like figure, spouting cryptic philosophy. It's a very bold choice to turn the franchise's hero into a villain, but it works, and Van Damme is chilling in this one. He's menacing. He's hypnotic in it. Andreiarlovski, on the other hand, is given very little to do other than shoot, kick, and punch his way through anyone and everyone. And he does it very well. He is another just menacing character in this. His fight scene with Dolphlundgren was awesome, and his fight scene with Scott Adkins is just absolutely brutal. Yeah, Andreiarlovski does a great job in this as well. All the cast really do a phenomenal job in this one. I can't state that enough. Now on to the directing and the writing. And speaking of that fight between Andreiarlovski and Scott Adkins, it is a brutal, no-holds-barred showdown in a sporting goods store. And it just, the use of baseball bats, dumbbells, it just works so well in with this, the way the camera tracks everything. The camera work is quite stunning in the way that it follows. There's a scene where he grabs a baseball bat and he holds it back, and it just works so well. This smooth tracking that I mentioned, every punch feels like a punch to the guts, like to the audience. Like you feel that hit. It's easily one of the series' best fight scenes, if not a standout in recent action films that I've seen. It's great. Now, for a franchise as a whole that began as a straightforward sci-fi action, Day of Reckoning takes a bold turn into a much darker, more ambitious territory, diving into themes of identity, free will, and the horrors of dehumanization. It also raises big questions about memory and autonomy. While the effort is commendable, the narrative in this is slightly messy. There's flashbacks, hallucinations, and clones. Yes, clones. And they did bring those into the regeneration. That's how they brought back Andrew Scott. That's how they bring him back again in this one, and probably again in other ones. But it does leave it feeling a little fragmented. And with ideas touched upon but never fully explored. They don't really go into the whole cloning thing. Like, they went from healing chambers to cloning. Like, it's just, I get it. It's probably a more realistic way, but yeah, still. You've got to appreciate the way this film has, turned from an action franchise into more of a meditation on humanity, or the lack of humanity. The visuals are a standout. The neon lit hallways, eerie strobing effects. Like I said, if any epilepsy or seizures, this one is not a thing to watch. The grimy backdrops, it gives it a vibe of a horror thriller disguised as an action movie. The whole thing has this very unsettling, dreamlike quality about it. And it's amplified by this hypnotic music that is equally cool and terrifying. So now on to the effects, and this has some of the best physical effects out of all the Universal Soldier films. The gunshots, the machete wounds, they all look great. There's very little in the way of CGI, which, as you know, I'm not a fan of CGI blood. There's no overly techie backdrops, so there's no need for any real CGI. This is gritty, this is dark, this is dirty. It's a film with an unrelenting brutality that foregoes the previously used high-tech backdrops. Think of the vehicle that they used in the first one, the Universal Soldier compound used in the second one. Even to some extent, the lab that they use in the previous ones, Universal Soldier Regeneration, all gone. This is just dark, dirty. It is what it is. It's more realism in this one than any of the previous films. So now on to rewatchability, which, as you know, is a big factor in movies that I watch. This is probably one of the longer films in the series, and there is a lot to absorb and take in. The movie deals with some pretty weighty themes, but will I rewatch it? Hell yeah, well, this is some of the best fight scenes, and Scott Adkins, as I said, is very much an underrated actor, and everyone in this film brings their A game. This is one, it's just an absolute pleasure to watch or rewatch. So, final verdict. This is a very bold and uncompromising entry into the franchise, blending visceral action and psychological horror. While it does have a very convoluted plot and a grim tone that may deter some viewers, its ambitious direction and standout action sequences make it a unique and memorable experience for those seeking something more experimental in the action genre. Without spoiling too much, the ending is a lot, and it leaves things very ambiguous, raising more questions than answers. So if you're into, wait, what just happened finales, you might dig this one. But if you just want closure, prepare yourself for disappointment. But everything up to that, yeah, it's great. This one is left open for a sequel, and in all honesty, if they went ahead and did a sequel, I'm all for that, because if they continue this route, yeah. Anyway, for a score, Universal Soldier Day of Reckoning gets an 8 out of 10. And there you have it. That's the Universal Soldier franchise done and dusted. Now, I got to say, it is very rare that a franchise, even 4 movies in a series of films, ends on such a high note. Like, come on, when does that happen? Like, I honestly can't remember the last time that happened. Notably, like the franchises that I've watched have all had a steady decline in quality over time. This one it does something different, and it just works. So bravo to the filmmakers, bravo to the cast, bravo to the crew, everyone who was involved in these films. You've done a bang-up job. Fucking amazing. What can I say? Anyway, look, thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please do hit that thumbs up button. It'd be much appreciated. And of course, if you've listened to me dribble on about this film for so long, you might as well hit that subscribe button. And of course, hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I do release a new review. We will be back next week with a new franchise. What'll it be? Well, find out next week. We've also got Trashy Tuesday with some fun ones coming up. Whew, yeah. Fun's relative, really. But hey, some of them are good. Some of them not so much. But thank you very much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.
Ginger Ninja on the prowl. Franchise Fridays is going wild. Oh, yeah. Zombies, vampires, ready to haunt. Movie nights never mild.